The Baltic Sea doesn't like to give things back. Ships, planes, people. If the sea takes you, it tends to keep you. But on a December night in 1994, it gave something back that nobody asked for. At 2:14 a.m., a coastal monitoring station in Dansk picked up a faint distress call. It was a classic Morse code, panicked, repetitive, and an SOS loop. Nothing unusual about that except for the call signs, MV Helga. That name had been listed as lost at sea since 1959. No survivors, no wreckage, just another Cold War mystery file stuffed in a drawer. The technician on duty thought it was a prank, probably someone bored with a ham radio. You know, a guy sending out ghost signals between vodka shots. But the Morse wasn't random. It was crisp, deliberate, and coming from coordinates smack in the middle of the Baltic shipping lane. They logged it because bureaucracy demands that you log everything, even ghosts. And that's when they noticed a really strange part. Their transmission was coming through on a frequency decommissioned in 1962. Old military band, no reason it should have been active. Yet there it was, looping the same frozen message, Mayday. The operator tried to triangulate the source, but every attempt came back scrambled. The signal moved, not drifting, not bouncing, but changing position, as though whatever was transmitting it was on the move. And then came the icing on the Baltic cake. When they played the tape back later, the timestamp didn't match the log. It read December 14th, 1959. Now you'd think someone might have pulled the plug right there, called it a malfunction, gone home to drink something warm and forget about it. But they didn't. Because if there's one thing you can count on humans to do, it's answer when the dead calls collect. By dawn, the Baltic had swallowed the coastline in fog thick enough to chew. A Coast Guard cutter, the Vidar, was dispatched to trace the phantom signal. Standard protocol. Sweep the area, verify the source, pretend you're not terrified of the sea's habits of answering questions you didn't ask. The fog wrapped the vessel so tight it might as well have been floating through milk. Radar pinged once, then again. Each echo coming from a point about a kilometer ahead. The coordinates matched the signal of origin. On board, the communications officer patched into the same frequency used by the old distress call. For a few minutes, nothing but static. Then, a voice, thin and metallic, broke through. "This is the MV Helga. Engine fire. Need assistance." The exact words from the 1959 distress transmission. Only this time, the voice sounded clearer, closer. The captain ordered a sonar sweep. Nothing. No hull, no debris, not even a rogue container. Just endless water beneath them and fog all around. Then came the first real shiver. One of the radar technicians looked up and muttered, "Sir, that echo is matching our position." The blip wasn't ahead anymore. It was mirroring them, moving exactly as they moved. Stop the engine. It stopped. Turn starboard. It turns too. For 2 hours, the Vidar circled a ghost that refused to be seen, until, at 8:37, the fog began to thin. The horizon shimmered with a faint silhouette, an angular shadow, drifting in and out of sight, like the sea itself was testing whether to return it or not. Radio logs confirmed one final transmission before the signal cut out completely. A single line whispered through static, "You're late." The fog finally completely lifted around noon, reluctantly, like it was embarrassed about what it had been hiding. And there it was, a ship, no name visible at first, but the silhouette was unmistakable, boxy, industrial, with the blunt nose of a mid-century cargo vessel. The Vidar's captain ordered the engines cut to idle. The crew stood silent as the sea flattened out around them, the air dead still except for the quiet hum of radar. Through binoculars, the hull looked wrong. The paint was gone, eaten away by time and salt. But it wasn't rust-colored. It was white, frost-white, like the metal itself had been frozen solid. As they approached, the letters MV HEL emerged through the corrosion. And that was enough. The Helga. No registration, no sign of modern refit. Just a relic adrift, somehow untouched by decay. They launched a boarding skiff. Protocol says you announce yourself before boarding an abandoned ship. But who are they expecting to have answer? Still, habit's a powerful thing. The first officer called out, "Helga, this is the Swedish Coast Guard. Anyone aboard?" No reply. Only the sound of the skiff's hull tapping gently against the ship's ladder, like a polite invitation. Inside, everything looked like a photograph left for too long in the cold. Plates on the table, coffee cups frozen mid-sip, a half-played hand of cards still laid out in the mess hall table. The radio in the corner was still powered, its dial glowing faintly green. Then came the logbook. It sat open on the bridge desk, a neat slant of ink in tidy German handwriting. The last entry, December 14th, 1959. The same day, the distress call was sent. The log mentioned an unidentified light above the horizon. One line, half finished, simply read, "If anyone finds this, we saw the light again." The ink trailed off there, as if the writer had been interrupted, or maybe just erased. One of the officers muttered that it felt like the ship wasn't abandoned at all, just paused, like it was waiting for someone to hit play again. Because nothing says welcome aboard like a coffee cup that's still warm after 35 years. One of the Coast Guard officers said quietly, "This looked like it happened yesterday." Another said, "Maybe it did." Then, as if the ship wanted to prove a point, the Helga's radio crackled to life again. Not static, not anymore. A clear voice, familiar. "This is the MV Helga. Engine fire. Need assistant." The captain leaned in, his jaw tight. "Patch it through to base." Only when they did, the voice on the tape came through again, and this time it wasn't the voice of some dead sailor from 1959. It was their own transmission from that morning. Every word, identical, even the breath between sentences. The tape loops once more. "This is the MV Helga. Engine fire. Need assistance." If you've ever wondered what deja vu sounds like, apparently it's on Channel 16. They packed up the logbook and left the wheelhouse behind. Outside, the fog had returned, only this time, it didn't feel like weather. It felt like the sea breathing. Back on shore, the recovery team tried to make sense of what they'd found. They had the logbook, a few blurry photographs, and a case of frostbite that probably made every insurance clerk in Stockholm groan. The media went feral. "Ghost ship found frozen in time," screamed the headline. Another paper called it IKEA's worst idea yet. Of course, the scientists got involved. They always do. And like every good rationalist thrown into a haunting, they sounded absolutely confident until someone asked for proof. The official explanation? Magnetic anomalies. Apparently the Baltic is littered with Cold War junk, old submarines, sunken steel, and even rumors Nazi bunker or two. They said those things could mess with radar, distort radio frequencies, even produce false echoes. Which is a tidy theory, except for one tiny detail. None of that explains the warm coffee still sitting in the galley. Then came the environmental crowd, suggesting maybe methane pockets under the seabed caused hallucinations. Sure, the ocean just slipped everyone a Mickey and made them hear voices. Happens all the time. Meanwhile, the locals weren't buying any of it. To them, it was obvious what had happened. They'd been telling the same story for generations, about the Ice Bride, a ghost ship that appears whenever the Baltic is about to claim another soul. Fishermen say she drifts silently until she spots a vessel with its lights burning in the fog. Then she falls behind, matching its course, and waits. Every year or two, someone vanishes, and the story gets another verse. And scientists say folklore doesn't evolve. Clearly, they've never tried to outpace a ghost with better PR. One marine historian even proposed that Helga herself might have inspired the legend long ago. And now the story is circled back, swallowing its source, which honestly is the most Baltic Sea thing imaginable. Months passed. The Helga was towed to a secure naval dockyard where she was supposed to be examined, catalogued, and ideally forgotten about. Bureaucracy has a way of burying even the most supernatural nonsense under enough paperwork to choke a kraken. Then came the nights the cameras went dark. Once again, the MV Helga disappeared into the darkness and fog. Weeks after Helga's re-vanishing act, the Marine radio operator in Turka picked up a faint distress signal. The timestamp said 2:14, and the message repeated every 30 seconds. "This is the MV Helga. Engine fire, need assistance." The same words, the same cadence, the same voice. Only this time, the signal wasn't bouncing off the usual emergency frequencies. It was transmitting from somewhere underwater. When the Coast Guard triangulated the signal, they realized something was off. The coordinates pointed to an area where the sea floor had already been mapped, flat, lifeless, and empty. Except now, sonar showed a shape resting there, something big. A dive crew volunteered to check it out, because there's always someone who watches too many documentaries and thinks they're invincible. They descended through icy water, visibility dropping to almost nothing, when suddenly their floodlights hit metal. A ship. The camera feed showed a nameplate clearly, MV Helga. The same lettering, same wear, same pattern, same everything. The weird part? Her hull was sealed shut with corrosion, thick enough to suggest she'd been down there for decades, which was funny, since she'd only gone missing 3 weeks earlier. Then one of the divers noticed something odd through the cracked bridge window. The logbook, still open on the desk, and a faint glow coming from underneath it. The feed cut out right after that. If the ocean had Wi-Fi, I'd say they just lost the signal. But it's hard to drop a call when you're 30 meters below sea level. The transmission of the Helga's distress call continued for another 6 hours before fading to static. When they went back to check the coordinates, nothing. No ship, no signal. Just the quiet hum of the Baltic, pretending it didn't just swallow its own punchline. The Baltic keeps secrets, the way a miser keeps gold, tight-fisted and quiet. Maybe the Helga was a glitch in time. Maybe she was never real at all. Either way, the ocean doesn't owe us explanations, only echoes. So until the next mystery drifts ashore, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what surfaces next. Thanks for joining us on Truth-ish, where the stories are sometimes true and always strange.